They agreed to stay friends. Not because it was easy, but because it felt safer than losing each other completely. From the beginning, there was something different between them. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It was subtle. The kind of connection that didn't need attention to feel real. They talked every day. About everything. And sometimes, about nothing at all. Being around each other felt natural, like coming home after a long day. At first, they didn't call it love. They told themselves it was comfort. Familiarity. A strong friendship. But deep down, they knew. The feelings grew quietly. In shared glances that lasted a second too long. In moments where laughter faded into silence. In the way they noticed small details no one else ever did. Still, neither of them spoke up. Because speaking up meant risking everything. And silence felt safer. They convinced themselves that friendship was enough. That loving each other quietly was better than losing each other completely. So they stayed friends. They listened to each other talk about other people. Other relationships. Other possibilities. And each time, it hurt just a little more than they admitted. They smiled through it. Encouraged each other. Pretended it didn't sting. Because that's what friends do. But love doesn't disappear just because you refuse to name it. It waits. There were moments when the truth almost came out. Late at night. When emotions felt heavier. When honesty felt closer than fear. But every time, one of them pulled back. And the moment passed. Life moved forward. Responsibilities grew. Time became limited. They still talked, just not as often. Still cared, just more quietly. And one day, things changed. One of them met someone new. Someone serious. Someone real. They smiled and said they were happy. And maybe part of them meant it. But another part understood that something was ending. The distance grew naturally. Not out of anger. Not out of hate. Just life doing what it always does. They didn't have a goodbye conversation. They didn't need one. They both felt it. Eventually, they stopped talking every day. Then every week. Then, only occasionally. Time passed. And with time came clarity. They realized they hadn't just lost a friend. They had lost a chance. A love that was real, but never brave enough. Years later, they thought about each other from time to time. Not with regret, but with honesty. They finally understood something important. Staying silent didn't protect the friendship. It only delayed the ending. Love needs courage. And fear will always cost you something. They didn't blame themselves. They forgave themselves. Because they knew they did the best they could with the fear they carried at the time. Not every love story ends in romance. Some end in realization. They stayed friends. Even though they were in love. And that love, quiet, unspoken, unfinished, changed them forever. Sometimes, they wondered what might have happened if they had been braver. If one of them had spoken sooner. If one honest conversation had changed everything. But life doesn't answer those questions. It only teaches lessons. They learned that love doesn't always fail loudly. Sometimes it fades quietly, hidden behind smiles, masked as friendship, buried under fear. They realized that staying friends wasn't a mistake. It was a choice made with good intentions. They were trying to protect something beautiful, even if it meant sacrificing what they truly wanted. And that choice shaped them. It taught them to recognize love when it appears softly. It taught them that comfort can sometimes feel like safety, even when it holds you back. Later in life, when they felt something real again, they didn't stay silent. They spoke. They risked rejection. They risked change. Because they remembered what silence had cost them before. The love they never spoke about became the reason they loved more honestly later. They didn't regret staying friends. They regretted staying quiet. And understanding that difference brought peace. Some people are meant to be lessons, not lifelong partners. Some connections exist to show you what your heart is capable of. They stayed friends, even though they were in love. And that unfinished story became the quiet reason they chose courage the next time love appeared. Single moment, it was a habit. Years later, when asked what kept them together, they never said luck. They said effort. They said forgiveness. They said commitment. Because love didn't carry them. They carried love. And that's the quiet truth behind relationships that last. Special. They learned that love doesn't always feel loud. Sometimes it feels like safety. Sometimes it feels like understanding. Sometimes it feels like being seen, fully, and still accepted. They didn't stay because it was easy. They stayed because walking away would have meant giving up on something real. Something rare. Something built, not found. And maybe that's the kind of love most people are searching for. Not the kind that burns fast, but the kind that stays. Because in the end, love isn't about finding someone perfect. It's about choosing someone imperfect, perfectly. The story doesn't end here. It continues. Every day they choose each other. And maybe one day, long from now, they'll look back and smile. Not at the struggles. Not at the hard days. But at the choice they kept making. To stay. To grow. To love, even when it wasn't easy. Because love didn't change their lives overnight. It shaped them slowly. In ways they didn't notice until years later. And that's the truth no one talks about. The deepest love stories don't